So lovely. And forgive me while I get my phone open so that I can see who is getting on here, if anybody ever gets on here. Haha. I was just saying to Curtis, my following of 5 people. I do like the fact that on this live feed they do they actually do the closed captioning text on it, which is really awesome. I think that's really cool because it just broadens the reach to individuals who may be deaf. That's kind of cool. I would love to reach that population as well. All populations if possible. And it's funny because I was, as I was telling you, I was doing my master's program, there is a video that was shared, and the video was how we communicate, and that different forms of communication, some people don't necessarily, if it's not words or verbal cues or what society accepts as the type of communication, then it's unacceptable. So like autistic children, all that kind of stuff, sometimes their form of communication is not understood in popular media or society itself, and so they get judged for the way they communicate. And the communication for this video that I watched, and I can share it perhaps on Spirit and Coffee and you guys can watch it, but it just basically the engagement, the beingness, the engagement of things, the communication of touching and drinking and just being at one with the surroundings is what they were talking about in terms of communication, and how they make vibrational sounds and frequencies rather than putting together symbols in words to articulate the experience they're having, which is pretty cool. So always different forms of communication. So what I wanted to get into today, of course I'm a squirrel, I was a little off, but what I want to get into today is talking about boundaries. That seems to be a common theme that's showing up not only in my own personal life, but actually in my graduate program. We did have to do an assignment where it asked about, why are boundaries important? And I started to contemplate this, and it was funny because I was actually having conversations in my household with people about boundaries and what that looks like and why they're important, why it's good to understand, first of all, how to communicate what boundaries mean to you, but also you being able to understand how to set boundaries for yourself with individuals and understanding that. And part of what was going on was the boundaries I felt being crossed and causing, maybe anxiety or causing these different emotional, sort of emotional trauma, right? And understanding where it came from. So I tried to figure out, like, why am I experiencing this feeling that I don't typically have? What's going on? What has changed? What's the dynamic? And then understanding that the energy in my surrounding was too much, too big. There was too much going on. And then how do we communicate what the boundaries are for us? For instance, like me, I need a lot of time to just have my own space. It doesn't take me very long to process things that happen, and I get over things very quickly. Some people don't. Some people, it takes longer for them to process it, right? But even in that, I need space, and those are boundaries. And it's like, if there's not a boundary set, then I feel like I'm being suffocated, and the anxiety starts to turn on. And in that anxiety, I start to like hyperventilate and not feel like I can have, the space for my energy, basically. So understanding boundaries is super critical. Now, being able to speak about it authentically. So we did have a couple of people, I've read a couple of people responses in our class, my master's program, talking about what boundaries mean to them. There was a couple of takeaways that I was very, new ways of thinking about it. One was like building trust with yourself. How do you build trust with yourself when you create boundaries? Well, when you create boundaries and then you communicate those boundaries with somebody, you're keeping a commitment to yourself. So you're gaining trust in yourself to be able to speak authentically, to be able to communicate to the people around you. You're setting the trust for yourself, not necessarily anybody else. And then the other piece, was understanding how to set boundaries, your energetic boundaries with others. And that takes a lot of awareness, right? Of looking at body language, of being aware what's good or not. Some people won't tell you like it's too much because they feel bad. But it's okay as long as you know that you're not going to start to hurt yourself. Because if you don't do that, what ends up happening is that you compromise your own mental capacity, emotional capacity, and your physical capacity. Because so I can tell you that it spiraled for me with this, because what was going on was, number one, I was getting anxiety, right? But it was the energy was being trapped, and I didn't know where to put it. Didn't have space to sort of let it move through me and kind of allow it to open up. So I was like, well, what do I do? The anxiety started to cause some physical, right? And then stories were playing out in my head over and over and over and over, and it kept just recycling that energy over and over. And I'm like, how do I refocus this? Well, part of it was to allow myself to set those boundaries, and understand where the energy was derived from, or where it was coming from. Like, who or where or who was I engaging with that was triggering this response system for me, and how do I communicate that there's things that are happening, lines being crossed, that I get to say, no, this is not okay, and here's why this is happening. Now, for the individual to care or not care, it's totally up to them. They can say, well, hey, look, I just whatever, and then it's up to you to decide where you want to go from there. But not being able to have the authenticity and to be able to be vulnerable to communicate is really important. And one of my classmates was speaking into the fact that they were afraid to talk about boundaries with people because, of course, people want to be liked, and thinking maybe, oh, well, I might lose my friends, or I might not have, the people might get upset around me if I'm speaking my internal truth and I'm telling them that I need space. But I have a good friend. So Lisa, who's a good friend of mine, she's been on here a couple of times. She was a really good person for me to learn what that meant, because she communicated to me. She felt safe enough to let me know that she needed boundaries, and that she really helped me understand where I was like crossing the line with boundaries. And she just said, like, I need space and I have to set my boundaries. And I thought about that, and I was like, wow, like, so, I'm sorry. So understanding how I engage with others, right, is really a big thing. I have a big energy, a big personality, and typically have a lot to say, as you know, and sometimes pushing people over the ledge more than I should, when I could just say back off. So listening to people, right? I've had people who are like, I need you to and I'm like, oh, sorry, like I've crossed the line. And rather than take offense to it, understanding that individual can only handle so much, because at the end of the day, we can exert our energy on others and drain the shit, excuse my language, out of people, and leave them in a state of whatever, anxiety, or drained, or we just put our baggage on people, or we put our own ideals on people, and like it's like a heavy weighted coat, and we're like, oh, you know what I mean, where it's like, I need space. So boundaries do allow for the space to exist between individuals as well, and that's good. And I think in relationship, it's really important. As you guys know, I'm practicing relationships, so think things are starting to flow a little better, because at first it was like good, and then it got weird, and now it's starting to feel like this ebb and flow and stuff. And why? Because we're understanding each other. We're understanding how the boundaries need to be set, and I'm able to communicate and articulate that as well. Good morning, Jennifer. Good morning, Curtis. You could share it if you'd like to share the video. But understanding that in relationship, and why? Because space is important. There's been times where I'm like, I need a bigger space because my energy is bigger, and it needs to be sort of like under like this, and then come back together, right? Because my energy is huge, and everybody in this household can feel it when it's on blast. And it's not that I want to spew my energy on everybody. It's just I have big energy, so I need a bigger space. So I would just go to the park and sit in the park and let all the energy flow at the park because it's huge. And hopefully no one's there, and I can just do by myself and allow the energy to go away. Or move through me, I should say. But understanding those boundaries is super important, especially if you're in a space where there's a lot of individuals, there's a lot of people, a lot of different personalities moving around. It's important to be able to say, like, I need my space. I need some time. I need to disconnect. I need to go here, and not taking offense to it. Because I think at the end of the day, sometimes we take offense, like, oh, they don't want me around. It's not necessarily that. Typically, right, if somebody says, I need space, or someone says, I need time, it's because they don't know how to handle the energy they're receiving from you, not necessarily that they don't love you. You don't have to make up that story, you can, or you could just ask them, I'm sorry, you need space, is it okay if I come back later? Or how much time do you need? Or just come see me when you're ready to, whatever it is, rather than taking offense to, you can take offense, it's totally your life, it's up to you, right? But I'm just saying that when someone tells you, like, I just need time and space, they're not saying that they don't love you. They're just basically trying to communicate, like, it's too much for me right now and I can't handle it. And like, what ends up happening when people don't set those boundaries and we continue to take it on without really communicating it out of fear that people might not like us, is that we end up getting sick. So a part of what the one of the ladies said, and I've experienced this, is that we start to resent the individual. We sort of start to resent. Why? Because we're not communicating that it's too much for us, and that's important. So that's why it's important to be able to communicate what those boundaries are for you, because at the end of the day, if we don't communicate, like, I need space right now, then what we start to do is, like, close up before you know it, we're looking at the individual like, I can't stand you. Why? You're mad at yourself because you haven't allowed yourself to be authentic with this individual and say, look, I need time, I need space. I just need space to go through this. And then when I'm done processing what needs to be processed, then I can come back and we can communicate. So never feel, you can if you choose to, but I would say you don't have to feel like no one's going to like you if you set boundaries with them, right? Because there's a certain way to communicate that. And sometimes it might hurt, and maybe you might lose people in your life, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they were right for you then. That's possibly what it means. So I highly recommend that you do set your boundaries, let people know, understand, like, there's a specific space. Oh, okay, I'll have to do it as well.
Okay. I'll tell them.
Destiny. My mom was like, can you please tie my my blousey? Anywho, so yeah. Little kitty mommy, and now I lost my train of thought. But no, important, right? So cheers to that. Okay, continue. Again, being okay with communicating and authentic, and that takes a lot of courage to be able to communicate that to individuals, to be able to let them know how you truly feel, to let them know that it's important that there is this boundary within you. So if you are having, complications setting boundaries with an individual or somebody, I would say you could reach out to me for one, but here's maybe a little bit of support or practice is being able to get very clear about why you're afraid to communicate to the individual? What is holding you back from actually communicating that this is something that's super important to you, that this space that you need or these boundaries that you need to set is so hard to communicate? Like, do you feel like you're going to lose something? Do you feel like you're not worthy? Do you feel like that you want to be liked, or that you might lose friendships because of it, or that you might start a fight? Whatever it is for you, right, is just understanding, what is the fear around being able to communicate what your boundaries are, and also digging a little deeper into what boundaries mean to you. What does that even mean? Like, and recognizing that that's what's going on. Like, how do we come up with the boundaries that we need to set? Like, what are the boundaries? What's important to us? How do we set them? What does a boundary even mean? So, like, understanding your life. And sometimes, so looking at your friends, I would say look at your friends. I had done a mandala exercise with people where you start to look at the individuals around your space. And as you're looking at the individuals around your space, asking yourself, right, are they taking energy? Are they giving energy? And if they're sucking the energy out of you, are you setting the boundaries to let them know? Doesn't mean you have to let them go. You could. Bye, Mama, I love you. You too, I love you. You could, right? You could say, I can't be around this energy anymore. Or you could say, I want to set boundaries with this energy because I can only handle it for so long. Sometimes with people I love and they're not harmful, they just need support and they're going through something. That for me is what I'll do. I'll set a boundary and say, okay, I can only handle this person for, so long. And then maybe setting the boundary of, like, I can't be around them all day, every day, but I can give them my time maybe once a week or whatever it is. So that's true too. And then communicating to them, like, whoa, like, this is getting too heavy for me. It's not you. I just can't handle any more of it. So getting over the fear, and also understanding if the energy is being sucked from you or not sucked from you. Like, if the value is being added back to you, and you're like, okay, this is good, then awesome. If it's like, oh, it's kind of sucking my energy out, and you're like, I need to set a boundary. Now, not a wall. I kind of like what one of my classmates said too, like, not creating a wall. Boundaries and a wall. I think that was a good distinction that she brought up. Walls are like, you can't come into my space at all. That's it. I'm totally closed off. We want to engage with people. Most people like that connection, right? We're social creatures. So then looking at and saying, okay, instead of putting up a wall, I understand how much I can be around an individual and not be around an individual. So it's like, oh yeah, I can be around this individual like all the time and I feel great. And then you could be like, oh God, I'm around this individual for 20 minutes and I'm feeling drained, right? So it's just kind of understanding that. And then allowing yourself to communicate, well, there's boundaries, I need space, this and that and the other. It's not that I don't love you, I just need to replenish my own self, my own cup. Then on the other spectrum, it's you and how you engage others, and looking at that and saying, wow, am I taking energy from the situation? And if so, not that it's not okay. Like, sometimes we have to vent, sometimes we have to talk to somebody and let go of the baggage, but really understanding when on personal responsibility, when we're like dumping way too much energy on an individual, that we're sucking them dry. So some people don't have the awareness that they're doing that, and some people do. And sometimes it takes us to hear that from others. Like, I'm sorry, is this too much for you? You can even ask, if this is too much, let me know. I understand, I'm going, like that. And that's taking personal responsibility on your end. Now, you don't have to do that, but I guarantee you're going to have healthy, long-lasting relationships if you do. I just know, because I've totally crossed lines that I probably shouldn't have. And I was telling Curtis this morning, like, I can cross lines in terms of mental stability with individuals. So I can push and push and push, and someone's like, please, I just can't. Good morning, Nana. Is it Nana? Nana? Um, but I can push boundaries to the point of people breaking mentally, and that's not good. And I needed to understand how to disconnect from that and say, okay, there's a certain level where I need to just learn to listen and stand back. And people will typically say, like, it's too much. Like, I can't anymore. Like, they know. And I'm like, oh, okay. Before I would be like, oh, they can handle more, and just not understand that I can need to stop. So, and step away. And, or even when I see their face and I get those cues, like that's what my friend was saying, like sometimes you don't get the cues, and I don't think I did. I don't think I was getting cues with individuals. And so I started to pay attention, and when you see an individual, they you can tell when it's too much. So they show you, right, if you're aware and you're observing. So I had to go, oh, okay, I think this is it too much. And I'll even ask, is that too much? I'm sorry, like maybe I'm overstepping things. I'll like walk away, and sometimes they're gonna be like, oh no, it's okay. And you're like, no, it's not, you're just saying that to be nice, which is fine. But I'll be like, no, I'm serious. If it's too much, you need to say something. Like, tell me. But most individuals, may not say that. So that's just you being proactive if you choose to. And I think it helps the individual to be able to process. Not only that, I think it builds trust in them to want to come and talk to you about situations, when you're able to do that and make that discernment, and then say, I'm sorry, is this too much? And they're like, yeah, well, it's too much. And then they feel okay with letting you know when it's too much the next time, like, this is too much. And then you could be like, okay, I'm sorry, I'll back off. So I love the topic of boundaries. I think it's relevant. I think it's something that's very maybe not discussed enough. And then understanding what that means to you, and understanding too that boundaries doesn't mean being a brick wall and not letting anybody in. It just means that you get to be authentically you, and know that people are going to respect you even when you set your boundaries and you let them know, like, this is how much I can handle of this energy, and then I need space, or whatever your boundaries are for whatever it is, right? Anything that you're up to, like, I can handle this much, but not that much, and and understanding that. But it takes you understanding you as well, and what's important to you when it comes to boundaries. So I think it's a great topic. Really insightful to hear from other people, and perhaps I think as time progresses, I will have some of my fellow classmates, maybe some of my professors, come on here to talk about certain things, and certain topics. I'd love to have them on as guests, if they're open and want to be vulnerable and honest about what we're talking about. Totally up to them, right? So, but I would love to have them come on, just to speak from their perspective, because the insight that they gave helped me a lot with understanding that I build trust with myself as I set boundaries for myself, and understanding and remembering that I get to set boundaries, I get to communicate to others about the boundaries that they can set with me, and let them know that it's okay to do that, and that my energy sometimes can be a lot, and so it's okay for them to communicate that to me. And then I think with that, it becomes a harmonious friendship, relationship, whatever it is, because now you're able to step away not feeling like you're not enough or not worthy, or this person doesn't want to be around you, or you're understanding that that you too will be loved even if you set those boundaries. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. We'll see what more comes up. I've been doing some research in paradigms of consciousness, which is really cool, talking about the difference between paradigms and how paradigms are created, and what that means, and how we shift paradigms, which I think is really cool, because we are in this big state of a paradigm shift where the old no longer works, and we're starting to create something new. We've questioned everything about what has been happening, and now we're looking at life from a whole new lens, and whatever was happening before, it's just not working anymore. So now we're stepping into a whole new way of perceiving the world, and it could be that we perceive the world this way before, or it's a recycled pattern. I'm not sure how that works in terms of paradigms. Question I'd probably have for my professor, but that perhaps paradigms recycle themselves. Just know that things have changed so dramatically, and it's because there's a shift happening in the way that we perceive the world, and I'm understanding how the paradigms start to shift and why. So I can go over that tomorrow, which would be super fun, and at least have some basic understanding of how to change a paradigm, and from a scientific perspective, but also from an experiential perspective. Okay, so there you have it. I love you guys. I hope this was super helpful. Again, there's like 2 people. Not sure what's going on with the energy. Maybe God said that one person gets to get the message of boundaries. Maybe other people understand boundaries. I didn't. So there you go. I'm gonna put myself out there. I wasn't the best at understanding this, and I do know that there are people who still kind of don't get it, and hopefully this supports them. So there you go. Lots of love, light, and beauty today. Salute to you, and I will be seeing y'all tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye bye.